Rooney.
Good evening and welcome to Football Fever with Ali, and we've got Mark, a Man United fan, Jay, a Liverpool fan. Commiserations tonight, mate. And we've got Ralph joining us shortly, who's also a Man United fan as well. We are live tonight on Facebook Live, YouTube and Twitter. At least we should be. I did a test run on Twitter the other day and it seemed to work. So if you want to watch it on any of those platforms anytime, just search for Football Fever. Look for the little icon with the ball going in the net, and you'll be in a good place. So without any further ado, let's kick off. Some big games today. Mark, I know you'll be eager to talk about the derby. So what did you make of it? What was the master plan, and why did it work for United so well today?
Oh, are we not going to start with Liverpool?
We'll come to Liverpool a bit later.
Okay, all right.
Please do.
We'll build up to it.
Okay. Okay, so the derby, it was the absolute opposite of what I think most people expected. I've got a few notes here. The positives for me were Martial turned up. He looked absolutely great. Apparently he was possibly not even going to play up until the warm-up, but he looked right up for it. Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka were and have been consistently brilliant for a lot of games now. It's very, very rarely you'll see either of them not perform. I'm really shocked but pleasantly surprised at the duo of McTominay and Fred in the middle. Ole seems to love those two in the big games.
Yeah.
Which, if you'd said to me a few years ago, that's going to be your centre mid partnership in the big games, I would have said we're in big trouble. But Fred has proper pulled it out of the bag the last season or so. McTominay is. I just really hope McTominay keeps on elevating his progression, because he is really, really brilliant at the minute, and I think he could well get to sort of Darren Fletcher sort of level, which I think we all know Alex Ferguson thought hugely of. So yeah, I think those were United's kind of positives. Henderson in goal. What more can you ask for than a clean sheet and a completely confident, competent performance?
Yeah.
The defense seem happy in front of him. There doesn't seem to be any confusion between them. He seems vocal with them. So yeah, I'll add some more in a moment. But what are your guys' thoughts on it?
Well, so firstly, it's kind of a question back to you, because a lot of people have been talking about Harry Maguire over the previous shows and how rubbish he is. But there was a lot of communication going on from Henderson out to back four today throughout the game, and whether it was because the cameras kept looking at him or not, I don't know. But it seemed to be a lot more than what De Gea does. And they did seem more settled as a result. And now for me, United packed the backline. They were good on the press, especially early in the game, but they packed out the defence and made it really hard. They were very compact. And City was struggling to get the normal lines, especially through the middle. So they were being forced out wide all the time. And by the end of the game, they were just swinging balls in for headers, which is so unlike City. And then United, really good on the break. And it's kind of different to how you see them play, particularly, you look at the last three games where they haven't played particularly well, but they've got the ball all the time, or they had the ball all the time in those games, and they're trying to break down other teams that are sitting deep. When they break out, for me, they really play to City's kind of weak point, which is when you've got fast lads all running at you all at once in different directions. There's a chance you might score against them, and the proof was in the second goal today, which was exactly that, wasn't it? It was just Shaw bolting out, keeping the ball, keeping his head. No luck in that goal at all, just a good goal. And so kind of a different performance from United, and it's going to be against City, and it's not the first time they've played that well against City either. But how do you turn a performance like that? So I said I was going to turn it to a question and then went on for about 3 minutes. How do you turn a performance like that into a win against Brighton or Burnley or West Brom? The teams that are going to really plant the bus against you.
I know we've spoken about this a little bit off of the show, Al. It really does feel like United set up very differently against the big teams, purely mentality wise. If it's an FA Cup knockout game, we'll turn up. If it's a City or a Liverpool or a Chelsea in the league, we turn up. We draw 0-0, but we don't get rolled over. Yet we can turn up against a Crystal Palace, a West Brom, or a Sheffield United and look so average. It's scary.
Yeah.
And there has to be something in the mentality of that they don't turn up in the same way for those bottom half of the table teams, shall we say. Whether they get too complacent or too overconfident that it's going to be an easier ride, I don't know.
Yeah.
Solskjaer comes out after every game saying, there were some positives, but we need to work on this and that. But for me, the mentality is we are not good enough because we should be beating Crystal Palace the other night 4-5-0.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have drawn with West Brom. We shouldn't have lost to Sheffield United. We would be comfortably in second place by now if we just killed off a few games over the last month.
Well, if you've killed off a few games over the last month or two, you'd be pushing for top spot, really. You're only because you're 11 points ahead of them now. Sorry, behind them. Ahead would be nice.
Well, okay, 7-8 weeks ago we were top of the table.
Yeah.
And look at the difference between City over the past 7 or 8 weeks and us over the last 7 or 8 weeks. And that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do you overcome that though? What's the key? Because it's about, that's kind of my question. When teams are playing deep and parking the bus and you haven't got that space to run into, what should Man United's plan B be with the players that you've got?
That for me is where some of the bigger players, Rashford, Martial, Fernandes, they haven't been turning up when they should have been. For me, Rashford seriously needs to improve his finishing. Some games he can be almost invisible.
Mm. Well, it looks like you won't have to worry about Rashford for a while because he went off injured, didn't he?
Yeah, that didn't look very, very clever, did it?
Yeah, not so.
But it might actually do him good. I think he maybe needs a.
Yeah, maybe. Did you see that game, Jay, or were you still crying into your tea after the Liverpool game?
I didn't manage to see it, but I've had a little look onto it, amount of passes and the amount of shots and everything. It does look like the plan probably came out perfectly the way that you wanted to. Early goal, sit back a little bit, which you're going to do against City. You can't criticise them for that because anyone would do against City. Sit back, sponge all the, bring in all the attack, and then hopefully get them on the break. And they scored the second, and it just sounds like it was perfect down to a T. I didn't manage to see it, so I can't have our greatest input, but it seems like United did well. And going back to the point about the not being able to kill off like the so-called smaller teams, I think that was probably Liverpool a couple of years ago before we pushed City all the way for the title when we came second. I think the year before that and the year before that we were doing exactly the same. We just couldn't kill off the smaller teams. But I think it will come for United. Couple of big transfer windows. I'm not saying spend big, but just getting the right players in that can unlock the defence to do it in the end because they've got a solid core of a team.
Yeah,
definitely. I think. Sorry to just butt in again. I think we were massively helped today by two things: getting the early goal instantly relaxed us, took so much pressure off us getting that early penalty, and the second thing is City weren't at it today.
No, but they had to go. The finishing was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they had as City do, they had the ball in the right end of the park for most of the game. When it came down to either the final pass, I mean, is it worth talking about De Bruyne? Because I saw him midweek and he was awful then. I thought he's terrible today. I mean, his passing was all over the shop. But this is a guy that, normally if he misplaces a pass, you're like, what just happened there, Kevin? But the last 2 games I've seen him, his passing has been atrocious.
I actually asked Alexa today how old he is, because his name has been flouted around over the last couple of years about a potential Ballon d'Or winner and PFA Player of the Year winner and this, that, and the other. And I was thinking, that's going to have to happen in the next few years. He's 29 now. And for me, he's not quite... He's not near the Ballon d'Or level for me.
No, I agree.
Definitely not.
I agree.
I get quite... I don't know what the word for it is. God. In some of the games where the pundits really big him up, I get really surprised by it, because I do see some flaws in his game. Yes, his passing is unbelievable. Some of his goals are unbelievable, but I don't see him as a Ballon d'Or winner. Not even close.
It's hard, isn't it? Because he's, he covers up. And what I'd say today in the game, he covered a lot of space over the field over the whole 90 minutes. So, fitness-wise, he's still there at 29. All his engines are running. Doesn't get injured that often. When he does, he seems to come back fairly quickly. Kind of does influence games. So, he can normally grab a game by its coattails when it needs doing. But one of the things that for me you rely on De Bruyne for, or the team rely on him for, is the accuracy of his passing. You don't expect him to be the one that gives the ball away and then that prompts a counter attack. But that happened 4 or 5 times in the second half today, where he just passed it straight to a Man United player. And I was thinking, Jesus, I can't think of a single West Ham player that would give the ball away 5 times in a half. They get absolutely destroyed for doing that.
Yeah.
And but it's De Bruyne, so it kind of slipped. I mean, I guess when players are doing that and making those kind of mistakes, you always have to think about what the other team are doing. I think we'll get onto that when we talk about the Liverpool game. Fulham played well, and you have to take that into account as well. The press was really good on City's midfield today by United, so De Bruyne had less time than he would normally have to be fancy. They were just harrying the City players, weren't they? It was great to see. I enjoyed it anyway as a neutral.
Just before we move on from the derby, I'm just wondering, what's the score with Aguero?
Sorry, guys, just one second. I've just got to pop down. I'll be back in a sec.
So Aguero, I don't know. I mean, he looked deeply unhappy on the bench. I don't know if it's a match fitness issue or if there's something else going on in the dressing room. But he just wasn't an option.
I think the commentator used the words surplus to requirements at the moment. And I was thinking, when in the last 10 years has Aguero been surplus to requirements?
Yeah.
At City?
Make a lot of sense. He's the most natural goals scorer on the City roster, isn't he?
And he's a big game player.
Yeah.
Why he wasn't starting today, I don't understand.
Or at least if he wasn't starting because they didn't think that he was fit enough, you'd have him as backup ready to come on, wouldn't you? But Jesus came off and Foden came on, and at that point, from what I could see, Raheem Sterling became the striker, which it's not his natural position, is it? And then Mr. Sitter from the striker position as well. Oh, yeah. And that again, Aguero would have had no reservations about slotting that one in. And that was, I think it was 10 minutes left still. It would have been a squeaky bum time, as they say at Old Trafford, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Do you reckon he's on the way out?
I don't know if the commentators know something that we don't from that game, but I mean, he looked deeply unhappy, and you've got to think from the service that he's given City and the success he's had, I don't think he's really going to be content sat on the bench. How old is Aguero? Was he 31? Something like that?
probably say 32, probably 33.
So
maybe.
In his book, he's probably got a good, over a year or 2 years at the top level, and he might be looking at Spain or Italy to go and finish off his European career in, if he's not going to get a game for City, this season or next. But we're quick to jump on things like this, aren't we? And it's not always the case. It might just be that he's just not recovered fully from his last injury yet. They get harder as time goes on, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I mean, he was on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he could have brought him on, but he
2-0 down.
Yeah, he was never sent. He was never sent out to warm up, though, was he? So that suggests that he was never part of the plan. I was going to jump on to Liverpool, but Jay's had to jump off. So let's go on to you. You asked me to keep this one short, Mark. Changes to the handball and offside rules. So they're changing, not until the end of the season. So I think there was a bit of confusion about that. So the handball rule is taken away, and it was a day after that Fulham one, wasn't it? So if it's an accidental handball in the build-up to a goal, it will no longer be deemed as handball if it's accidental. And the offside rule that they're doing is now in favour of the attackers. So if any part of the attacker's body that can play the ball is level on the check, they're onside. So it puts it to the other side of the offside rule. So what do you make of those, Mark?
The offside rule seems fair enough to me. Is that all right? Do you not agree?
No, I'm all for making it in favour of the attackers. There's a view that it will make defenders more wary, and so teams will defend deeper as a result of it. But I think the proof's in the pudding at the time. It's closer to what the offside used to be when I was growing up, and I think
I don't remember that.
I'm sure you don't. And I'd encourage any change that's. I think with VAR we're still going to have the same issues, aren't we? We're still going to have someone wherever you put that line. If someone is drawing the line, to be technical about it, you're going to have disagreement about how accurate that line is and so on.
Yeah.
But
so if with the lines, if an arm or an elbow or an armpit hair is it in front of that line, are they onside or offside?
So if they're in front, it would be behind to play them on the side. So, for example, if a shoulder was leaning back and that bit of shoulder was in line with a ball playing part of the defender's leg, and the whole rest of his body was a yard offside, that shoulder makes him onside. So it's kind of the opposite to what it is at the moment.
Yeah. Can you see why I wanted to keep this section short?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know what it's going to do until we do it. I think if VAR's taught us anything, it's careful what you wish for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the handballs this season have been absolutely insane, haven't they?
They have.
I think it's calmed down a little bit recently, but the first half of the season, it'd be interesting to go back and see how many of those instances have been season-changing moments.
Well, they often influence the outcome.
Could have really
the outcome of the game, don't they? Did you the Arsenal game yesterday? That handball. How was that not a handball? And if that isn't the definition of a handball, I don't know what is anymore.
Yeah.
But
it's insane,
you slow it down and make an alternative interpretation of it because you're scared of getting it wrong in some cubby hole somewhere, and the whole country saying, well, that is definitely a penalty. There's something wrong with A, the penalty rule, but B, how it's been applied by VAR at that point as well. So again, I'm not sure the change in rules will change that interpretation, but my view on VAR hasn't changed. You can't judge it. It's like anything big that change in football. You need to give it a few years and let it change and evolve, as VAR has clearly done in the last 2 seasons. It's very different now to what it was at the start of last season. And actually, taking away that handball yesterday, we were talking about VAR controversy over the 7 or 8 games, or even 15 games if you look through the calendar week. There's not been that many VAR howlers. VAR's overturned things and been right this week. It's generally got things in the right direction as far as I can see. But we forget about those ones that under prior to VAR, they would have been injustices that have gone the other way because the referees missed something. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Very tricky.
Was it at the end of it was Burnley, wasn't it? At the end of the Arsenal game. Perfect decision of VAR.
Getting it right.
Absolutely. Getting it right, yeah.
And, you can't blame the referee for something like that because first glance, it did look like a penalty. But for the guy to have his red card rescinded, it was good because he hadn't left the pitch yet, had he? But yeah, I think that was one of the best ones I've seen of VAR getting it right. What's Glenn got to say? Hello, Glenn. I think they're making things a little too complicated with handball and offside. Yeah. Glenn, if you want to grab this spot that's in the room, where it says grab this spot, I think if you would have had to subscribe to the Football Fever page on Get Vocal. But if you have, you can just click on grab this spot and feel free to come on and have a chat if you want. But yeah, I guess it's a fair point, isn't it? Trying to overcome complications by adding new complications. Who knows where it's going to end up?
Oh, mate, I'm
sorry,
done.
guys. I am going to have to go. There's just someone up with the baby, so I do apologise.
Oh, Jay, sorry to hear that. Drop us a line later and
we'll do.
Let us know how you're getting on, mate.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
All right, all the best. See you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Jay.
Bye.
Yeah, it's good. Jay's got a newborn.
Is he?
Yeah. So Glenn, feel free to keep adding the messages and we'll keep talking about them. So let's move on then to Thomas Tuchal. I say it both ways because I can never remember which one's the right one. So 4 weeks in now, Chelsea up to 4th, not really leaking many goals, eking out wins. I mean, they're not scoring loads of goals, but they're winning games, aren't they? And they're keeping the ball. So how do you think he's getting on, Mark?
I mean, he's doing brilliantly, isn't he? I mean, the results speak for themselves. When I was making a few notes, I was trying to work out what has changed, and I can't really work out what he's changed too much. The only thing I can think is that he's included Giroud a bit more, and I think Giroud is massively underrated. And the difference between Tuchel and Lampard is Lampard was going down the route of Abraham up top, and I'm not sure Abraham was ready or right to be up top on his own for Chelsea. I think Giroud is. I think he's definitely good enough. He's got it in the bag to pull out an absolute worldie. He plays consistently well. You can't ever say he has a shocker. So I think that's been a big thing for the team, just having him as a target man up at the top. That the team around him can rely on him to pull something out of the bag if needs be. The situation with Hudson-Odoi, where he pulled him off because I think it was his attitude or something wasn't quite right on the day. I thought, here we go. The next in line of Chelsea managers going to fall out with the squad. But the next game, he put Hudson-Odoi straight back in, restored faith in him, and I thought, okay, let's see what happens.
Was that after the game where he came on as sub and then he got subbed again? Yeah.
That's it, yeah. And then the next game he started. So he'd obviously had a word with him. Hudson-Odoi had obviously shown him what he wanted to see in training between those two games. There was obviously no toys thrown out the pram, and away we go. Results speak for themselves.
Fair play. I think for me, Tuchel has got he's got. Oh my God! So Spurs have just scored 2 in quick succession. Bale and Kane show tonight. It's
right.
3-1. Palace equalised just before half time. The way they're playing, I think, is quite different. There's a lot of tiki-taka, quick passing going on, real possession game, keeping the ball a lot better than they did under Frank. A bit less kind of gung ho than Frank's sort of, the patient builder. More like City than than like Liverpool, for example. Less swashbuckling, more controlled, but relying a bit more on some of the older pros in the team. I think friends that are Chelsea fans have expressed a fear at the beginning that the kids weren't going to play. And then after kind of a game or two, it was clear that Mason Mount is probably going to be the most important person in the team, and he's in brilliant form. He's scoring goals, he's making goals, he's getting the ball up the pitch, and Tuchel just seems to be using the squad quite well, I think. So he came in and he did the old everyone's going to get a game under me, and they did, but it seems that they still are. And I know we sometimes say a manager doesn't know who his best 11 is. Who his first 11 is. He settled into a few of them, but the rest of them he seems quite comfortable chopping and changing them. Which, when you've got a squad with the depth of Chelsea's, we talked about it on a previous show, saying it's an issue when you've got that many players, that many great players on the bench, because they all want to play. But he seems to have found something quite quickly. I was definitely one of the football fans that said Frank deserved longer as a manager. If you're going to commit to a manager like Lampard, then you make sure that he does get that time to build a squad. You let him make some mistakes. I don't feel that he got that. But as a replacement, Tuchel's doing fine, isn't he? I think, will he be here in 18 months? Maybe not. He's got a history of falling out with teams. Abramovich has a history of not having patience with managers and player power taking precedent. But I think it's given Chelsea fans what they want, which is a strong finish to the season. Doesn't look like they're likely to get any silverware unless they pull off a miracle somewhere. But
the problem with him is he can be as successful as he wants to be, but unless he wins a trophy, Abramovich will get rid of him. Simple as that. But it's not a case of just coming in and winning a trophy when you've got teams like Man City around you.
So do you think the bar has lowered at Chelsea? Do you think winning a trophy is enough? Obviously, the League Cup's out because that's going to be City or Spurs. If Chelsea were just to win the FA Cup this season, obviously they probably wouldn't fire him at the end of this season for not winning the league because he hasn't had the whole league. But say next season they won the League Cup and FA Cup. Would that be enough for Abramovich, who's sacked managers for not winning the Champions League?
I don't think so. I think Abramovich is desperate to go back to the glory years of when they were at the top. He's got to be realistic that it's a different league to when Mourinho was the special one. But I think he needs to see Chelsea up there at very worst second or third. Yeah. Which I actually think next year, I really do think they'll be right
this year still, mightn't they? If they carry on the way they've been playing and picking up the results they've got, Leicester are looking a bit shaky at the moment. They've lost Maddison and Barnes to injury right now. Two of their most creative players. So it's kind of there for the take. If Chelsea get past Everton tomorrow night, big game tomorrow night for fourth spot, they're going to be right on Leicester's tail there, aren't they? Anything could happen at that point.
It wouldn't surprise me for 1 second if Chelsea finished second.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't.
Yeah. So well done, Tuchel is our verdict. He's had a good start.
He's done what was asked of him, isn't he? He's come in. He's kind of steadied the ship. He's got certain players playing. He's rotating the squad. He's playing the players that the fans would want to see him playing. I think the fans really rate Giroud, actually.
Yeah, they do. do.
I think he's going to end up being a bit of a club legend. Actually,
I think he fits the way that they're playing at the moment. That slow build up, because it allows him the opportunity to get into positions where he's a very technically gifted player, isn't he? And what he lacks in pace, he makes up for with what he can do on the turn or in the air. He's Scorpion King, isn't he, Drew?
Yeah, that's it. And to be honest, what a squad they've got. It's as good as Man United's. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying some areas have got more strength when you look at their full back positions, centre mid. They've got loads of players, haven't they? And if you're a team that can afford to have Christian Pulisic on the bench, you're doing all right, aren't you? You're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
definitely.
Let's move on. So England players that aren't currently in form. So the Euros are coming. I guess the squad had picked itself a few months ago, but there's players that have gone out of form that would have been automatic picks not so long ago, and players that have come into form recently. So from that England squad, who do you think from that first 11 that we would have presumed would be starting, who should be out and who should be in, Mark?
Okay, about a month, 6 weeks ago, I wrote out what my starting 11 and squad would have been at that time, purely so I could compare it to the starting lineup of our first game in the Euros, just out of curiosity, really. And then when you said we were going to talk about this, I had a look at it, and already I had to change several players in it. For me, I had Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. I think most would have done, but at the minute he just looks so tired that he looks so low on confidence, fed up. How can we possibly go into the Euros with a player starting in that frame of mind?
Would he be on the plane still?
I think he's got to be, isn't he?
Yes, but I wouldn't be starting. I'm the same as you. I wouldn't be starting with him. For me, it would be Wan-Bissaka all day long.
See, I love Wan-Bissaka. I really do. I think he's come into his own this year, but I don't even feel like he's going to go, let alone start. I really don't think he's going to go. For me, if I was starting today, I'd be putting Reece James in at right back.
It's interesting. Reece James at right back, because he's not always starting for Chelsea, is he? Because they've got an abundance of right backs and an abundance of left backs. So even if you go to switch wings with him, because I think he can play on both sides, can't he? But they're queuing up.
Yeah,
great player though.
Yeah, I think Reece James has done so well for Chelsea when he has played. He's young. He's desperate to prove a point. You can see that. He seems to have bundles of energy. And that's what we need. We don't need leggy, knackered players going into the Euros.
I can't remember who it was to last week, but that he's got a look of the illegitimate son of John Terry on his face. He's got that John Terry streak in his eyes that you just know he can really get stuck in. Nothing else, just I'm talking about football.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. He's got a bit of a heart of a lion in him, isn't he?
For a kid, he's hard, isn't he? He's really well built. Doesn't sacrifice style for that, but he is incredibly robust on the ball, I think. Right, so we've dumped Trent off.
Yeah. So I'd say Trent out, and then, like you say, Wan-Bissaka, James. There's probably several that could go in that spot. Is there anyone I'm missing that I'm not thinking about?
I don't think so. Like I said, mine would be Wan-Bissaka based on form. I think he's improved through the season. His passing's getting better. But the key for me, we always talk about kind of all the attacking players that we can take to the Euros. But you need to be able to stop good teams from scoring goals. and that means you've got to have protection down the wings, otherwise you're going to get destroyed. And for me, there's no one better in the Premier League at stopping left wingers than Wan-Bissaka. He's the best we've got at stopping people.
Yeah,
and the rest of it will develop.
Absolutely.
He's getting up the pitch more now than he was at the start of the season, and so you could say he's not a finished article.
Yeah.
But a defender's first job to protect the goal, and he's great at that.
I think we all know we've got a lot of other players doing a pretty good job going forward. But what we do need to do is protect the goal, 100%. So
and I think Wan-Bissaka, were we to move to a 3 or a 5, could adapt to that. No problem. He's got pace as well. I'd say he'd be my first pick. So I agree, and it's weird because I said not so long ago the thought of taking Trent out of the England team would have been one of the first people on the sheet. But he's got to find that form. He's obviously not finished. He's very young, but he's young and done it all already. But he needs to find that form to do it all at an international level.
Just feeling the effects of a hard season, I think, isn't it,
for him? That's I think I've said that about Liverpool before.
Yeah.
It's not just about what's happened this season; it's what it's taken to get them to that league title. It's a long slog. There was a whole season before that where they should have won the league under normal circumstances, but City were just phenomenal. That momentum was actually over two whole seasons, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think going forward, at left back, I don't think anybody could argue Luke Shaw's played himself onto the plane. I don't think he would have gone 6 months ago.
No.
I think Chilwell was pretty much written on the team sheet already. But how can you not take Luke Shaw at the minute?
I think he's so good going forward as well. But again, doesn't make many mistakes at the back at all. Fast, strong, reads the game well. Doesn't do stupid stuff, which is really important when you get into international level, isn't it? You don't showboat, don't give the ball away in stupid positions on the pitch. And Shaw doesn't do any of that. So, Christ, if we take Maguire as well, we could have a United back 3 out of 4.
A scary prospect, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think another one we can safely say is John Stones has played himself into the starting lineup.
100% agree. 100%. I don't know what they put in his tea, but it's worked, isn't it? What a player.
Yeah, too right. Confidence and faith. That's all they've given him.
I mean, how old was he when he went to City? So he played, was it a season and a half at Everton at senior level? He wasn't in the first team for long before he went to City, was he? And they paid a fortune for him. He must have only been like 19 or something when he went to City. But he was confident then, wasn't he? And it was like his confidence took a hit when his form dived, and then you just didn't see him for a while. But it just goes to show where hard work can get you, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think Southgate is going to play him alongside Maguire, but for me, that isn't the right decision.
So, forgive my memory. Is that who we played at the World Cup? So we had Maguire. It was Stones next to Maguire then, wasn't it? Or was it?
I've got a feeling it was. Yeah, it was. It was Maguire.
I thought it was Maguire and Stones, and then Trippier and Walker were the main fullbacks.
Yeah,
and we were all right with that, I thought. Well, we got to look a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think between then and now, Maguire's had a lot of pressure put on his shoulders, hasn't he? Back then he was coming in as this glowing granite head that nobody was expecting to turn up and shine for England. Whereas now he's going to be going in as a leader or expecting to be one of our leaders. but he's got so many errors in him. So many. I don't ever feel secure with him. Even today against City, just before half time, he left Mahrez in a million miles of space coming down the right and gave him chance to whip a ball across. Luckily, Jesus only hit the post rather than actually connecting with the football. But there was nobody had a clue Mahrez was there, and he needs to be picking that up.
I mean, Mahrez is all right at that, though, isn't he? but goes into that space, and I think when you look at how many chances
he does
he typically get in a game, then I think overall the defensive performance of that back four was top notch today. It's probably the best defensive performance I've seen against City this season. I'm a bit annoyed because we had a good go a couple of weeks ago or last week against Man City. I like to think that we softened them up a little bit for United this week. You're welcome. I know. Yeah,
just loosen the lid for us, did you?
All right. So my the player that I grew up that I had in, or at least was part of the conversation, maybe not on the starter sheet before, but certainly on the squad. But based on kind of recent form, would be Danny Ings. But look, I've asked a question consistently on previous shows about strikers, and I think we're a bit. When you look at world football, we're a bit shy of top level strikers right now. And the names that were thrown at me were players like Danny Ings, Jamie Vardy, who's retired, and so on. And I said, it's all well and good saying that Ings, is scoring 20 goals a season in the Premier League. But when you get to an international level, you get one chance in the game, you have to score it. And that's why someone like, peak Harry Kane, great, because, that's just in post. That's what you get from Harry Kane, but from Danny Ings, I'm just not sure he's at that top level footballer, and now he's not scoring goals either. Why would you put him on a plane to got taken off injured again yesterday, so it's his second injury of the season. Just doesn't fill me with confidence that he would be someone that is going to turn it on.
He's going to have a very strong next 10 games, isn't he?
And a bit biased here, but when we're talking about having a little surprise at your sleeves and that, surely Antonio's got, if he doesn't sign for Jamaica, surely Antonio has got to be on the plane for someone. Obviously he's not going to start when you've got Kane, but someone to throw on with 20 minutes left that defenses just won't look. Who's this guy? How do I handle him? Because he scores his goals against top footballers.
Yeah, exactly. He was actually someone I was going to throw out to you during this conversation. Actually, is that surely he has talked himself into the running, or played himself into it? I should say.
I agree.
He's not just this season. Whenever he's played for West Ham over the last few years, he's done such a good job for them.
He's a club legend.
He never ever lets them down.
So are his hamstrings. They're quite legendary for tearing, but they seem to get better when the weather gets nice. So he normally gets a tear in the winter and then finishes the season quite well. Then doesn't have a tournament to play afterwards because he doesn't get picked.
Right.
So, if he can keep fit for the last 12 games and then still be in with a chance, then I'd put him on the plane. Absolutely. As long as he doesn't do his hammers in training for England and right off the start of our Europa League campaign next season. He says, hopefully.
I may well I may well be wrong, mate, but I don't even think Southgate has got him in his thoughts.
I mean, this was something that you mentioned. Let's go straight on to it, actually. The fact that Southgate picks young players, a lot of young players, is he missing out on some of the older talent that other managers may pick to take to the Euros? And I guess Antonio is an example of that. So in asking that question, who else did you have in mind?
Yeah. for me, if I was Southgate, I'd be begging Jamie Vardy to go. 100%. Like you said a minute ago, that player that can come on, get one chance, and they've got to put it away. You know, Jamie Vardy's going to do a job for you. Whereas taking someone like Tammy Abrahams, I don't think any of us have got that much faith in him scoring a winner in a quarter-final or anything.
I've got a lot
like
of time for Abraham, and I'll tell you why. Because I think he's done it the right way, and as in, within Chelsea's system, he's come up to the youth system. He's been loaned out to a few lower clubs, and we've had some Villa fans on the show in the past, and the way they talked about Tammy Abraham was absolutely glowing. And I think part of the problem is for Abraham is he's not starting in a team where he's that big fish every week. And if he just got a chance to do that, he'd be developing his finishing a little bit more, because he's very instinctive. He's a natural finisher, but he just hasn't quite honed it at the top level yet. And so I'm not sure Chelsea's the club to do that. Apparently, there's a contract dispute going on at Chelsea with Abraham, because he, as footballers do, he wants more money, and we can say that's selfish, but it's because he's looking at what Hudson-Odoi is on, and apparently Hudson-Odoi is on 3 times what Abraham's on. Yeah, when you look at the score sheet, Abraham's scoring goals, Hudson-Odoi is getting subbed after coming on as sub. So there's a bit of acrimony there, and apparently rumours that he may leave in the summer completely. And it might do him a favour, but where it wouldn't do him a favour is for the Euros, don't think, because it just comes at the wrong time, doesn't it? He's playing himself out of form, so to speak, at the moment. But I rate him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hudson-Odoi's getting the money because he's been linked with teams like Bayern Munich. Tammy Abrahams has got the Villa fans waxing lyrical about him, but don't forget, when Tammy Abrahams played well for Villa, he was in the Championship.
But it's not like he hasn't scored goals in the Premier League either.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Yeah. He can score goals. I'm not saying that, but I'm not sure he ain't good enough to go on the plane yet. Surely.
Just mindful of who are attacking options, or how many strikers do you take? What happens if Kane gets injured? Because we just don't.
Kane, Calvert-Lewin, Vardy.
You only take 3.
We've got so many other players around them. Sterling, Sancho, Rashford, Greenwood, Foden, Grealish, Mount, Maddison.
So
I don't need to go on.
Would you consider
I don't
Rashford
think we
as
need to be taking 4 or 5 strikers
in that group then? Because to be fair, he scores quite a few goals for England, doesn't he?
No. He wouldn't be my first to replace Harry Kane up top. No. He's definitely. I'll be honest. Rashford isn't my favourite player at all at the minute. I don't think he'd be in my starting 11 for England at the moment. I think he's looking a little bit like Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's looking tired and like he really needs a rest. Maybe this possible ankle injury today might be a blessing in disguise.
He will,
yeah. He'll get him a packed lunch, won't he?
Evening, Luke. Luke's our Canadian friend.
Don't get me wrong.
Put a little soccer ball on there, because we're talking about football on our football show. Hi, Luke. So Jordan Pickford. This was your point, wasn't it? So Jordan Pickford. Just before we go into it, I'm going to do the case for the defence. Pickford's always come in for quite a lot of stick for making mistakes, so on and so forth. Even before the World Cup, which he went to, didn't really make any mistakes. What a goal. That's Harry Kane again. I took him out of my dream team.
Well, I'm missing the best game of the day by the sounds of it.
Looking very good. Spurs are purring at the moment. What were we talking about? Pickford, yeah. So yeah, he had a really good World Cup. Gets a lot of stick, but how many mistakes does he actually make? I don't watch Everton week in, week out, but the Everton fans seem to like him. So what's the reason that I'm asking? Because the alternatives are Pope and Henderson, I believe, is the general consensus. Saw Pope make a crap save. Yeah, well, it wasn't a save because it went in the Burnley game yesterday. He should have stopped it, but his hand wasn't strong enough. And then Henderson today, good performance, but there was one instance when City were coming in the press and Henderson went to play the ball out straight to a United player, kind of like City player, kind of like sometimes as well. And I just thought, why none of our keepers are as good as Edison or Allison? None of them. I don't think any of them come close. And we've I think as a nation we've got a bit of a blinkered view about that because we're used to having some of the best keepers in the world because historically we did. But Pickford, I myself would keep him just on the basis that he's done that tournament before. And I'd take the other two naturally, but I wouldn't necessarily start with them. What about you, Mark?
Right, mate. My view on Pickford is. I feel he is, as I think I've mentioned to you before, he is England's next scapegoat in waiting. There are so many people quick to jump on him when he makes an error that on the national stage, we all know we love to have a go at a keeper. How many keepers' careers have gone rapidly downhill after an error for England at a tournament or in a qualification game? And I think there's so much positivity and excitement and faith around Pope and Henderson that why not put one of them in?
Yeah, I just think they've got potential mistakes in them as well. And is it this close to the Euros when Pickford's done the campaign? Is it the right thing to do?
Mate, you could say that. You could say that about any goalkeeper. Look at Alisson over the last month or so. How many errors has he made? Yet he's been the best goalkeeper in the world, I'd say.
But surely, when you talk about international level playing for your country, you've got to have really ballsed up to be dropped, haven't you? Because you've been picked on the merit of what you've done over the last few years. And so, I know, like Rob Green made one howler in the World Cup, never played for England again, did he? What has he has made a couple of mistakes for England, hasn't he, in the campaign? But if we're saying that, that's what keepers do, even if they're good, then how? Like you said, he could be the scapegoat waiting to happen. But
I just think going into a tournament, you need to go in with every possible ounce of positivity you can. And especially if we've got someone like Maguire in front of him, that's then a goalkeeper and a central defender that have got a lot of critics at the minute. Whereas I don't know anyone that is criticising Nick Pope or Dean Henderson to that level.
Yeah, for me, I think part of the reason behind that is because he's England goalie now. So, we do a tournament, they make a couple of mistakes. They're the new goalkeeping problem for England. Interesting point about, with Maguire in front of whoever's in goal. And then it's straight to think, so you've got John Stones and you've got Maguire. Well, you've seen Michael Keane playing quite a lot over the last couple of years for England. And is Maguire automatically on that team sheet with... It seems to me that Southgate's decided that Pickford is the England goalie. That's not going to change before the tournament unless something big happens. But
I think it will be. I think if I was to put money on something now, it's going to be that Pickford's going to start the first game, and in front of him is going to be John Stones and Harry Maguire, either as a 2 or potentially with maybe Michael Keane in there as a 3.
And we're going to win 6 or 7-0.
But that would worry me. Yeah, maybe, mate. For me, there's just that air, that there's that grey cloud over Pickford.
I know what you mean.
But whether you agree or I agree, Gareth Southgate is going to start.
I don't disagree, but I think technically there's some issues with Pickford. I think his positioning is sometimes very poor. He's doesn't always. He seems to have this thing that I'm short, so I have to try harder to make world-class saves. But he doesn't always make them. I think he can be rash, as Van Dijk can pay tribute to, no doubt. He does some hot-headed things which you don't want. The keeper needs to be the most reliable person in the pitch. I just question whether it's worth changing it so late on through, in the season going into a tournament when he's been in England and won for a while. We tend to stick with the same keepers for a long while, don't we? But I guess time will tell whether Southgate will keep him and whether that's the right decision or not.
I think we can say he's going to start him, and I'd like to say as well, I think it will be his last. It'll be his last tournament. At least we'll get to run around with that Euro
trophy before we drop him, because it's coming home. Final in Wembley. Right, let's stick a couple in bits before we finish off, Mark. We're not going to get through all the points tonight, but I'm going to go to point number 10 on the list. So, an unpopular opinion that you have about a current team or player.
Wow. An unpopular opinion.
Don't know if you ever listen to Radio 1 Breakfast Show, but they have
that's a tough
unpopular opinion song. Yeah, that kind of thing. Shall I do my one while you have a think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
go on then. You've caught me off guard with that one.
Wolves are crap this season. So gone through a lot of shows of the Football Weekly with the guys, and a lot of people saying, well, Wolves are all right. Wolves are doing really well. Wolves this, that, and the other. I think I saw Wolves' best performance of the season last night. They were really good in the second half. Really good. 0-0. And for me, that was Wolves' best performance. Whenever I've mentioned it in the past, people say, but what's his face is injured. What's his name? I've forgotten his name. It's been a long week. Jimenez is injured. And my retort is, this all started before Jimenez got injured. They've been rubbish all season. They've switched their formation from a 5 to a 4 after losing to West Ham, ironically, 4-0. And Wolves were our bogey team before that. They always beat us. And we destroyed them. They were so easy to beat. I don't want to, tempt fate because we're playing them again in a few weeks. But I've never really seen them recover their form all season. They look slow. They're players that aren't in form, such as Ruben Neves, start every game, finish every game. This is a guy that was in the Premier League a couple of years ago. He's just, putting in Rose Edmos.
Yeah.
Adama Traore, last season being mooted as, one of the most terrifying players in the Premier League. I think he's got no goals and no assists. 1 assist or 1 goal, no assists all season. Surely, if you've got a big brute with pace like that, that's good at crossing, you'd expect some assists over the course of the season. Starting every game with his baby oil in his arms, as if I need to do this because people try and slow me down. Actually, just run with it, son, because you're not doing anything with it. And so I just think that
No, that's
I've not looked that much into this, but apparently Nuno has this thing of a few good seasons, and then it all goes to crap, and he doesn't really know what to do about it, and he gets sacked. I think under normal circumstances we'd be in that season with Wolves, but they've got a good board there. They're very patient, but also they've built a squad of his players, haven't they? It's Portuguese B-side essentially. So yeah, don't rate them. No one seems to agree with me, but
I mean, now you've brought it up. Thinking about it, I honestly cannot understand how they're not in a relegation struggle. Seriously,
yeah. I mean,
because I don't actually remember them winning a game
lately, but in a kind of underwhelming way for me. It's not been that impressive. Yeah, just really slow in the build
just
up.
I'm
not saying they're lacking any quality whatsoever, because that would be silly. They've got some good players. Neto in particular is in great form. He's playing really well, but you can't carry a whole team. They brought that young lad, the Portuguese. It doesn't narrow it down. Portuguese lad with the long hair. Okay, but the reason I can't remember his name is because he comes on a sub every game. Doesn't do anything. He's not coming on and scoring winners. And that's either he's not good enough for the Premier League, or there's something wrong with the coaching at that club at the moment. Not taking away the great seasons they've had recently. But if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be really unhappy with the season. Really unhappy with the application of the players, the manager's attitude towards that, and so on. And I wouldn't be using the excuse of one striker as the driving factor of why we're getting turned over on so many games. What's your sorry?
I've come up with a few things in my head whilst you've been waffling on about Wolves being crap. I mean, I've definitely already burnt my hand by suggesting De Bruyne is a little bit overrated. Yeah. So I'm going to throw myself into the fire completely, and say that. And I'm not going into it too much. I'm just going to throw it in quickly that Liverpool's situation is not down to Van Dijk being injured, because he was on the pitch when they lost.
He was the one that got
to Aston Villa 7-2. Yeah, but I'm not going to go on about that. I'm not. What I'm going to say is Crystal Palace. There's a lot of talk about Roy Hodgson losing his job at Crystal Palace because there's no ambition and things like that. All right, there probably isn't very much ambition, but surely Crystal Palace aren't deluded enough to think that just having a comfortable season in the Premier League every year isn't a good thing for them. They cannot be challenging for Europe. Not at the minute. With so many other teams.
The aspiration and a promise, or the board tell them their desire of qualifying for Europe. So Palace aren't alone with that. You think of Newcastle, Burnley, West Ham, Everton. All the fans think they should be challenging for the Europa League. All of the fans outside the top six that aren't in deep relegation mire. I'm looking at Palace now to decide on the phone. When you look at that Palace side, so Will Sahar left, obviously went to Man United and came back, and has stayed for 5-6 seasons. So he should, with the quality that he's got, he should be a linchpin. They've got a big tall centre forward in Benteke. They've got a midfield packed full of kind of hardness but skill as well. They've got players like Townsend. I personally think Palace should be in a better position than they are. And I think what frustrates the fans of Palace is they've got some creative flair, but they go into some games setting up to draw 0-0 or just not to lose. And when you've got lots of skill on the pitch, they signed signed Eze in the summer, didn't they? Why sign Eze if you're going to make him defend for 90 minutes? Because that's what happened the other night against you lot. Eze just defended for 90 minutes, and yeah, great, churning out results, but it's a bit self-destroying. And I think I can't. Despite all that, I kind of half agree with you. What's the better alternative for them as a manager at this point? So say they sack Hodgson now because they're unhappy with results. Who do they bring in? So because the names, it's the same names always get thrown about, isn't it? Eddie Howe. Yeah. But
Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Frank Lampard
what those guys
chucked
can do
in there
from Hodgson. Make them a bit more swashbuckling and attacking. Just means they'll lose more games 4-0 than they do under Hodgson. Because Hodgson is.
Yeah, I don't think they've got the players to do
very
much better than they're doing already.
First time we played them this season was kind of November, and they were so much better than us that night. And I think I can't remember if we won 1-0. I think we drew 1-1, but we didn't deserve to draw. They should have beaten us by 4 or 5 goals that night. They were so much better in every area of the park, every single player. And so they've got the capability and they've got the ability to do that, Mark. But we played them again 6 weeks later. 3-1, we beat them, absolutely destroyed them. We just played them on the ball. And part of that was how well we played. But the other part of it was they just seemed really rudderless all of a sudden. And I think that is a criticism of Hodgson regimes, is they go off the boil. So they'll have a good run of, kind of 6-8 games, pick up enough points to get them safe for the season. And then they just won't play well again for 4 months. And it's frustrating. It's a bit of both, isn't it?
Is that down to Hodgson, or is that down to the players?
Buys players. It's a manager that motivates players, coaches them how to set up for each game. And when morale's low in the dressing room, it's a manager's job to overcome that, isn't it? Hodgson is a manager. He's not just a coach.
They've got enough. They've got enough experienced players in that team that they should be taking more responsibility for what's happening on the field. Cahill, Milivojevic, Benteke, Zaha.
If anything, I think
they've been in the
Zaha's
Premiership for years now.
Palace, because they should have built a team around him and a system and a way of playing around him. And I don't think they've really done that. They don't play to his strengths. And as a result of that, his head goes quite often in games, and you can see he's getting frustrated that people aren't on the same wavelength as him in the team, and then he stops being a team player himself, makes silly decisions with passing, keeps the ball when he should be passing it, and you kind of think, well, maybe they should have just sold him when they could have got 40-50 million for him a few seasons ago and bought some young fresh talent in. I actually think probably Ayu's a better player at the moment for them than Will Zaha is. I mean, Palace have played him tonight, despite the fact he's recovering from a hamstring injury. Why would you do that? That's bad management for me. It's against Spurs, who are probably going to beat you anyway. So just let it slide. We'll definitely beat you 4-1 if the case has turned out. Yeah, absolutely. Always with the hammer.
Give it another week.
As long as you can take.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I'm a big Roy Hodgson fan, and I just think the criticism saying that they need to get rid of him is a bit unfair. Really, I think he's doing a pretty stable job with them.
No,
he never gets a huge
fan of the
budget
undercover agent work he did whilst managing Liverpool as well. That was music to any Man United fans' ears.
Oh, he did a quacking job, didn't he?
All right, so just going to finish off with a question of a Scottish flavour. We were talking about this just before we came on air, Mark. So, how would Rangers get on in the Premier League?
Yeah,
you think?
Relegated? No, I think they probably. Are we talking Rangers at the moment or
it's-
Rangers over
It's
the
more a
past?
question of, it's not even the
5 years?
Rangers of now. It was, so if the FA and Scottish FA turn around next week and said from next season, Rangers and Celtic could join in the Premier League, so they get the TV money to buy £100 million worth of players in the summer, like teams that come up, with managers they've got or will have, whoever goes into Celtic.
Yeah.
Would they be struggling around the bottom like other teams that come up? Would they have a good season because it's a breath of fresh air, different way of playing, or would they be challenging? Because in Scotland they're big, and in Europe they're big clubs as well.
Okay, so I think all we can assume is, and basing it on Europa League form, that they would probably be looking at a 7 to 10.
We've agreed on a lot of stuff tonight,
finish.
Haven't we? What's going on? Yeah.
Please. Good minds. That's it. Get all the bloody Liverpool fans out of the way, and we'll have a proper conversation.
He was saying it. No, poor guy. He dropped me a line and said,
I don't think he said anything, did he?
Hysterical downstairs, so it wasn't good, and he just had to go and help. Drunk son, so bless him.
Yeah, so I think they would do all right. I think they've clearly, like you say, they've got that big team, big stage mentality from their experience in the Scottish League. They're clearly massive teams in football, but are they going to compete with City? No. Are they going to compete with Liverpool United?
It's interesting though, because I'd say maybe when it's been about kind of 15, 20 years when Rangers and Celtic were still competing in the Champions League and getting through the rounds. I remember some famous. I remember Rangers playing Man United, beating them, in the Champions League with a real. I mean, when you look at the players that Rangers had at that time, you understand why they could be competitive against Man United and how Scottish football has changed, under Sky money, obviously, but also with Rangers getting relegated and it being a one-horse race for so long. Look at the Rangers team now; it's a lower Premier League team at best. Some of the players would be top Championship players, or in other international leagues. Wouldn't even get into City. Would any Rangers players get into City, Liverpool starting teams, Man United starting team? No, they wouldn't. One of Rangers' best players is Ryan Kent, who Liverpool sold Rangers.
No, but at the start of the season, I can remember having a chat with another West Ham fan, actually, mate. And it was that discussion that West Ham need and probably have needed for quite a few years now, a real goal threat. You've relied on Antonio and Arnautovic and players like that, but you're missing a Defoe or someone like that.
Yeah.
And I can remember saying that, is it Alfredo Morelos? Would have been a really interesting buy to bring into a Premier League team like West Ham. I think he'd either sink or swim.
Yeah, I still can't work the fellow out whether
he looks brilliant.
He'd be good enough for the Premier League or not, because he does some brilliant things. I think over that Antwerp tie, the last two games, I think he was directly involved in. I think it was all of the goals that Rangers got, which was loads. Can't remember what it was. 10 over, I think, 9 over 2 legs. Yeah. And it was excellent. But then, considering the quality of the football over the 2 games, Antwerp didn't defend particularly well. But then, they beat Spurs. So Rangers didn't defend particularly well on Antwerp's goals either. So it was exciting football to watch, but it's exciting in the way of 2 teams for the mistakes, really. And that's Scotland's best football team by a country mile at the moment. yeah, so it would be interesting. As a kid,
I'd love to see him given a chance in the Premier League.
Yeah, I would and I wouldn't, because I don't want him to leave Rangers right
now.
No,
I'm talking about
he goes to West Ham, then I'd allow it. Yeah, that's fair enough.
See, I don't care about Rangers.
So I grew up supporting Rangers as well as West Ham because it was in my on my mum's side of the family. My grandpa was very close with the Rangers team. He knew the players. He used to get given signed shirts after games, and I used to get stadium tours when I was a kid and stuff. Because I lived in England and had an English team that I supported, that kind of took precedent.
Oh wow!
But I will say, it's been a long slog, and I know that Rangers got sent to the bottom tier for kind of financial issues, things that they did that were wrong. But that has nothing to do with the footballers. And what a journey to see. Ali McCoist went down with those players, got them back up. I think it was only 4 or 5 seasons ago that we finished second in the Championship. And we were something like 20 points behind Hearts, and you were like, we're never going to get back. We're never going to get back into the Premier League, and then got back, and then a season after that, Gerrard came in, and what he's done in such a short time just shows for me, he's got all the makings of the top manager. Because it doesn't matter where you do that, you're surrounded by the other teams that are in that league, and what he's turned around, and you look at the squad that he inherited, and then the squad he's built and delivered the league title in under 3 years, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And when you hear him talking about games now afterwards in the interviews, just the way he talks, he's talking like a top coach already. He just gets it. He's learned from all the best.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I've never been his biggest fan, as you may well remember. We won't go into that. But I cannot argue what he's doing. You can only beat what's in front of you.
He's got this calmness about him. I think he's picked up some really good traits from some of the managers that he's worked under. I think the clinical efficiency of Benitez, and not being afraid to upset people, but the warmth of Gerard Houllier shines out through Gerard. You can just see these different people. He said he was a guy that grew up in the club with Dalglish around and on the scene, and what a mentor to have there as well. And it's just all shining out now. I think he's doing a cracking job, and a lot of happy Rangers fans this weekend. Probably some of them a bit too happy going down to the stadium and celebrating without their masks on and stuff. But the outpouring of passion, however stupid it was, it was 10 years in the making, I guess. So, yeah. Well, I feel it myself.
Can you imagine how that feels?
A distant kind of Rangers fan that, such a long time. We've put up with so much misery over the last 10 years of Celtic winning again and again and again and again. And just when it looked like they were going to do it the 10th time and break the record, they didn't. So thank you, Steven Gerrard, for saving Scottish football. Right, Mark.
I'm not going that far.
We're in England's group, so I think the aspiration at this point would be to get anything against England, or a point, or just not lose every game by loads of goals. But brilliant to be at a tournament and really looking forward to it. And it's that rare time when my allegiance has to switch for a couple of weeks from Scotland. Normally, at tournaments, I'm all supporting England because that's who's there, and I love the football team. Which from the knockout stages of the Euros this year, I'll obviously do again once Scotland haven't progressed. But when on the Scotland England game, I'll be 100% a Scotland fan, just in case anyone asks. No, absolutely.
We're not going to agree on everything then, mate.
All right. Oh, I'm not supposed to swear and get vocal. Sorry, get vocal. All right, Mark. Thank you. We've got some points to take on to next week, but it's been an absolute pleasure that we've overrun by 20 minutes. We've had that much fun. So thanks very much for coming on. And just as we're leaving, Ralph comes on. Great timing, Ralph.
Sorry, mate. I've had family things.
Oh, we're going now.
Oh.
We're going, mate. We're all done.
All right, mate. No problem.
Yeah, kids back to school. Unbelievable.
We've got school in the morning.
Nabbies. No, do you think you could come on at 8 next week, Ralph? Because we missed you tonight. We've been talking about Man United winning. We've been talking about Liverpool losing.
I had a bit of an issue with the oldest daughter and attitude, etc. So a few things to sort out.
I think there's something in the water tonight, mate. Because Jay, who was on, the Liverpool fan, had to jump off because his little one was having a meltdown as well. Albeit, I think his baby's like 2 months old, so you can't really blame baby for that.
Yeah, I think she was a City fan.
I doubt it. I just really doubt it.
Hey, at least Liverpool are doing well anyway.
Yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see. I'm just going to wrap up the show and then just catch up. So, guys, Mark, thank you for coming on. Ralph, brilliant insight tonight. Thank you, mate. We'll be back at 8 o'clock next week on Football Fever, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and share. And if you want to come on the show, give us a shout. Thanks. Bye.